So we're back, and have you heard about this new thing, Disney Plus?
Can sign up for the package deal, Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, but that's not the point, Paul. We were watching Aladdin, and we thought about what is the one wish you wish you could grant SEC teams for each team. Right. So let's start, Paul. If you could grant LSU a wish, what would it be?
A little bit of help on defense.
That's a good one.
Maybe some DBs at DBU.
Right. Bring back all the NFL prospects they had.
Yeah.
All right. So we were like Georgia. We would probably wish they could go back and take away the South Carolina game.
Sure.
No, I don't know. That's to me. I mean, Georgia. All Georgia has to do is win the next two games, and that game is irrelevant.
Maybe wish a little more aggressive play calling for them.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, what would the Georgia win if they were undefeated right now? They would
be the same.
They'd be ahead of Clemson probably.
Yeah, they probably would. You're right.
I mean, that just kind of makes it's like assuring them a spot.
Yeah.
What about the Volunteers?
I frankly think a win over Missouri, and they're going to beat Vanderbilt down like a bad dream, and Tennessee is going to end up with a really great year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right, just wish we beat Missouri.
Right. They'd be New Year's Six in it.
Gator Bowl bound.
Could
all
be.
right.
Could be.
All right. What do you wish for Missouri? What do you wish for Vanderbilt?
I've learned just to keep my mouth shut when I don't have anything nice to say.
I think both their wishes are going to be granted a week from Sunday. Let's go to Alabama. I think this is an easy one. You know, if you had a wish for Alabama.
I wish that they could sign a free agent quarterback.
It's pretty good.
Russell Wilson.
Auburn. If you had to grant a wish to Auburn, Paul.
I don't think there are any wishes for Auburn right now, based on what I'm hearing.
You're right. They don't know what they want to wish for. They never know what they want.
I just wish Auburn would either appreciate what they have, or clean the deck.
That's a great wish. A&M. You have a wish you grant A&M
to make these next two games compelling, because we don't have much else on TV at night.
That's a good one. What about Ole Miss?
I wish Ole Miss continued good. I'm a huge Ole Miss fan. I love Coach. What's the coach's name there again?
Matt Luke.
I'm just kidding. I'm trying to be funny. Where are we here? Let's take a call. I knew that was something we wanted to do. Man. Okay, I'll just admit they told me I needed to do something for this cough, so I just sipped some Jack Daniels, and I can't remember where I am. Jeff is in Panama City. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you very much.
I just want to let you know what a great show you have, and don't change a thing. It's awesome.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Calling today to let you know, first of all, I'm a great Georgia Bulldog fan. I bleed red and black. And I think Kirby Smart has done a great job this year, and will continue to do a great job. Folks need to realize that he has realized that they don't have an explosive offense. They don't have the players, and Mr. Barnhart mentioned that earlier. They're not an explosive offense, and I think the one time that they tried to be an explosive offense, it cost them a win against the substandard South Carolina team. They are, without a doubt, an old-school, old-fashioned, run it, smash you in the mouth type of football, which is what the SEC was built on not that long ago. And that makes for unexciting football. That's just the way it is. They're content with beating you 7-3 or 10-7 or 14-10, and they're happy with that. Now, having said that, and establishing my conviction to the Georgia Bulldogs, I'm going to make this statement. I think that if there is anybody in this country that has the right to be upset about the way they're looked at this year, is the Clemson Tigers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I do believe they finished the year by absolutely skull-dragging through the mud a couple of what everybody thought was the top
Yeah, no,
team
listen, they finished the year winning by 27 and 28 points against arguably the two biggest names in the history of college football.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And no one outside of Clemson, South Carolina, gave them a snowball's chance
No.
of winning any of those games simply because of two things we kind of set a standard by nowadays in determining success, and that strength of schedule and the eye test. Because of their substandard schedule, they didn't pass a good eye test. What people overlooked was the fact that they have a great coach who has a great coaching staff. You take that with a decent recruiting program, and you build a winner. I don't care if you play cupcakes all year long. They're going to be good. Now, no one, since they won the national championship, has beat them. They're playing in the same conference. They're getting the same comments that they had last year. And I promise you, Dabo Swinney is sitting back just with a huge grin on his face going, okay, all right, look over us again, and we'll drub you again in the national championship. I mean, do you think that's wrong to think that way?
No. I mean, why would it be? And I mean, listen, it's always difficult when you're in that spot. I mean, Alabama had to sleepwalk through the first 9 games of the season too without being challenged, and then it all came apart. Nice of you to call. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's check in with Paulette. Hello, Paulette.
Hello, Mr. Finebaum. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I appreciate you taking my call. My husband has tried so many times, and today I did it.
Well, I am so glad you made it.
I want to talk to you about the Gamecocks, and I'm so glad you have brought it up a couple of times this week. It's time that we get another coach. He has not proven anything this year. He tore Florida down, and we need a new coach.
Well, listen, I think you may be right. The issue is what's going on in administration. So I'm sure you followed it. You live in South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
I'm dizzy trying to figure out which end is up.
I don't think anybody knows, but it's time that we get it straightened out because this season is heartbreaking.
It is.
And the quarterback we have, I'm sorry, he has not proven himself, and he's not a running quarterback. And Jonesy, the boy.
I apologize for running after you waiting so long, but we have to go to a break. Danny Sheridan is next. Time for Zim.
Yeah, Paul, it's time for today's headlines. And, Saturday's Western Carolina-Alabama game will be the final game of the season at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it's going to look a whole lot different come next year. That's because a 9-month, $92 million stadium renovation project will begin on Monday. That will include high-end club seats and suites that will replace seats in the West End. Student social spaces added to the south end, and 4 large video boards will replace the existing ones in each corners. For the spring football game, there will be limited seating and temporary audio systems. Staying with Alabama, Nick Saban said the school will pursue a medical redshirt for linebacker Josh McMillan. McMillan is a redshirt senior. He suffered a season-ending knee injury in August. This will give him the option as to whether or not he wants to come back for a 6th year. That would be a big veteran presence added to that Alabama defense. Meanwhile, Dog Nation today, Mark Kubiak insisted we get this headline in today. The Dog Nation made a case for Kirby Smart as SEC Coach of the Year. And what is that case?
Not happening.
Dog Nation's case is that Kirby Smart won 3 straight SEC East titles, had to replace his top 5 pass catchers, injuries to the offensive line, and of course they have the top defense.
Hold on a second. Is Dog Nation
SEC.
supposed to make a case for Gus Malzahn? It's Dog Nation.
It is Dog Nation. But Paul, check this out. Up in Knoxville, the Knoxville News Sentinel, they are making a case for the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers.
That makes sense.
Jeremy Pruitt. If Tennessee can beat Missouri and Vanderbilt, they would finish the season on a 5-game win streak after a 1-4 start. Paul, SEC Coach of the Year, Ed Orgeron. We know he's going to win it.
I think every local market needs to campaign for their coach. I mean, that's nothing like objective journalism here. Listen, Ed Orgeron's SEC Coach of the Year. He's National Coach of the Year. case closed. I think Pruitt would probably get my second vote if he can finish with 2 more wins. But Kirby Smart, please.
Friend of the show, Mike Griffin.
He lost
wrote
to
that
South
story,
Carolina. It's 4-8 team. Well, welcome back. We are here, and always great to welcome Danny Sheridan back to the program. Of course, we have not had an opportunity to talk to Danny in a while, but the fans have demanded, and we have acquiesced. Danny, great to have you back. Good afternoon.
Great to be back, Paul.
Well, we've got quite a ending to the college football season coming up, and I realize this week there aren't too many pulsating games, but I'm very interested in next week, especially Alabama going to Auburn. I know before the season you were out there talking about what the line was then. I'm trying to remember, but it was a pretty hefty line. Do you remember what it was?
That's a great question, Paul. I'm going to guess 14 to 17. It's pretty high.
Something like that. So I guess the question now is, I don't think much can really happen this week with Auburn playing Samford and Alabama playing Western Carolina. What's the line look like for the Iron Bowl?
Well, Westgate in Las Vegas, they put it out a couple of days ago, and they're using Alabama -2.5 as their projected line. They've also got lines on the other 5 college football playoff teams for next week.
So I'm guessing that Alabama probably has the narrowest line of that group.
Not even close. That's a good point. LSU, they played Texas A&M at home. That's a revenge game. They lost, 7 overtimes in 7 overtimes, and they got jobs. So I would be surprised if LSU lost. They'll be a 17.5-point favorite. Ohio State, that's an interesting game. You never know, but of course Ohio State's dominated them. Ohio State is their projected 13-point favorite against Michigan. Michigan's improving, but hey, Ohio State's been steady all year. Clemson, I believe they're number 3 in the polls. They're 24.5-point favorite over South Carolina. South Carolina could surprise and play them close, but I don't see them losing to South Carolina. Georgia's a whopping 30 at the Westgate against Georgia Tech. That's at Tech. And as you stay, and if you're interested, Oregon and Utah, they're both at home playing Oregon State and Colorado. Oregon's at least a 3-touchdown favorite from memory, and Utah's about 31 or 32 against Colorado. Oklahoma State is a 15-point underdog or greater against Oklahoma at home. But yes, nothing close to 2.5. Alabama's only a 2.5-point favorite. With Tua, they'd be a considerably higher favorite, and with Tua, I don't think they'd lose. With Mac Jones, nothing against Mac Jones, it's going to be a tough game.
I'm interested in your thoughts on the. I mean, obviously we're talking about maybe the best quarterback in the country, one of the 2 best without him, and Vegas certainly pays attention to stuff like that. What do you think it would have been with Tua as the starting quarterback?
Well, I may be prejudiced, but I'd say 6 or 7. He's that viable. I mean, he's that valuable to his team, and I think you can make a good argument there. Again, I think it'd be very difficult for Auburn's offense, as great as their defense is, to match Tua and Alabama's offense. Mac Jones is a good quarterback, you know that, but this is not Arkansas. We are a 41-point favorite. This is his first game on the road as a starter, from what I remember, and this is a heck of a hostile environment, as they say, to play in. Probably one of the toughest in the conference.
Danny, I want to ask you about Auburn, because you came on here before the season and were unusually upbeat about Gus Malzahn's team. A lot of people were surprised, especially with the difficulty of Auburn's schedule. They're sitting in there right now with 3 losses. If they beat Alabama, they'll finish 9-3. Pretty much where you had them.
Yeah, I said I thought they'd win 9 or 10 games. On your show the last 5 years, I think when everybody's been pretty high on them, I've said they'd lose at least 3 or 4 games, and they have. And I've also said this on your show, and I still believe it. Malzahn, I think he has a good year every 6 years. This was his 6th year. And this is the best preseason team I've seen him have in 6 years. Next year, they'll be back to mediocrity again. And past 5 years, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, Auburn has lost between 4 and 6 games a year, not counting this year. And in 3 of those years, they lost 5 games. Malzahn has a losing bowl record. His record I read against Georgia's 2-5, 2-5 also against LSU, and 2-4 against Alabama. Since he signed that contract, I guess before the 2018
Yeah, it was 2 years
season.
ago.
Yeah, he's won like 15 games, a little over $1 million a game. It's not a bad program.
It's a good deal.
That's what you want to. Yeah, I think so. I had an an Auburn fan. He's a huge Auburn fan. He stopped me Monday when I was out and about, and I think his son or several members of his family played football for Auburn, and he asked me a good question. He said he thinks that Malzahn is the most overpaid coach in college football today, and I couldn't think of another one. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but I couldn't think to argue with him. But he's definitely, again, I don't begrudge him for all the money he's making. That's the advantage of having a good agent and negotiating with a president and not an AD. But I think mediocrity is a kind word if you look at what he's done the last 5 years, and including this year. And that pablum about, this is a tough schedule, like a shot, I guess, at Clemson or Alabama. Well, you play in the SEC West. I mean, that's part of the game. It's not like you had a tough schedule and that's why you're losing. You have a tough schedule every year, so to speak. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Mediocrity the next year, and hey, more power to him.
Well, listen, there's a lot of conversation about his future going on, and some people outside of this area don't understand it, but I mean, you've laid it out, and it's obviously up to Auburn people to determine where he goes from here. But I mean, if he beats Alabama, though, he would still have 3 wins against Nick Saban since 2013.
Right.
I don't know anybody else who has done that.
Well, what's important to your program if you're Auburn? Is it important to beat Alabama? What's important to Alabama, your cross-state rival? To beat Auburn? No. It's to win the national championship, to win the SEC. But the point you make, if that's the most important thing, and they would have beat, again, they wouldn't beat them without Tua. But let's just assume they were to win the game, and that's your goal, beat Alabama every year, and to get the rest, then yeah, he would be retained. I don't think that's Auburn, the fans of Auburn, I don't think that's their goal. Surely they want to beat Alabama, but I think they want to win the SEC, and I think they'd like to get into the college football playoffs like their rival's done.
Danny, let me get to Alabama for a second, and let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that they get past that game. Otherwise, most of this Alabama in the college football playoff conversation is a moot point. But you've heard all the criticism. I mean, I'm on all these shows, and everybody wants to say Alabama hasn't played anyone, their defense isn't elite. But, I'm not trying to use the Vegas line as anything other than what it is, and we all know what it is, but there's still this perception out there that Alabama is a really good football team.
They're better than a really good football team. They're one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. And you have an interesting situation, as you know, if Alabama should beat Auburn, what happens if Georgia loses to LSU? I know what I would do. And if you're trying to pick the best 4 teams in the country, I would put Alabama in there. I can't think. Oregon's certainly a good team. Utah's a good team. Alabama, Georgia, LSU, they'd crush Oregon or Utah. It'd be like a 2-touchdown favorite, I would think. And maybe not 2 touchdowns. I know Clemson would be. Ohio State would be. LSU probably would be too. They'd be a substantial favorite over those 2 teams. So give me another team. Oklahoma, not that they wouldn't have a chance, but they're probably better than Oregon and Utah. But they're not in the same breath, or they shouldn't be, as Clemson, Ohio State, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. And then there's a huge drop-off, not just point spread-wise, but talent-wise. So, yeah, and Alabama's had a lot of injuries, but, hey, that comes with the territory. But they're still a very good team. My goodness, have you ever seen 5 receivers that may go in the NFL draft on one team? Right, and they've got a good offensive line, great running back who will play in the NFL, and 2 is a first-round draft choice, probably top 2 or 3 if he's healthy. So you can say whatever you want. I mean, anybody that would want to play Alabama is crazy. I wouldn't want to play him. As far as being one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country right now.
Danny, hold the thought. Quite a few more questions I want to ask you. If you could hold
Sure.
over one more segment, I know time is precious for you. We'll take a break. More with Danny Sheridan. We'll see what he thinks about the whole college football playoff and who the likely favorite is now.
You can look right now, and I guarantee you, if Alabama weren't Alabama, they would be where I've put them. But Alabama, because they're the brand, will be in the 5th position probably until they lose to Auburn, if they lose to Auburn. I don't see Alabama moving at all. And I know you had your data guy, your metrics guy on earlier today, and I know they've created a lot of jobs with this new college football playoff who's in thing up in Bristol. But when I start hearing this or that team has this low a percentage of chance of getting in or this high a percentage chance of getting in, Paul, from my vantage point, that just allows for the committee to continue to play the brand game, and it also allows much of the media to say, why should I care about Utah and Oregon? They have a 0.87% chance of getting in if they win out. Therefore, I don't have to care. It promotes laziness in the media. That's what it does. Albeit with a different set of circumstances and an offense and a quarterback like LSU's now that could probably be in a better position. But again, the rest of the country is going to go, really? We got to see that again? We got to see Alabama and LSU again? Oh, by the way, I believe at that time, Paul, Bill Hancock wouldn't even let us use the word playoff until that game happened. Then all of a sudden his office became named the playoff office. So that's what we're looking at, and that's why the branding matters and pure playoff privilege and all of that. The loss of Tua Tagovailoa, a lot of people were suggesting automatically. I mean, as soon as the game was over, oh, they're done, that's it. What? Huh? Are you kidding me? No way. This only enhances the Alabama narrative if they can go and boat race Auburn at Auburn, puts them in a great position. And if LSU does what it's supposed to do and beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, Alabama, in my opinion, will be in. They will absolutely be in. And the rest of the country, too bad. Here we go again. Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State would be your other team, another one of the playoff privileged, who, by the way, got in without having to win its Big Ten championship one year, much to the chagrin of Penn State. So they fall into that category as well. Brand names, Paul, all about branding, and Alabama is the poster child for the pure playoff privilege, no doubt about it. Georgia's one of them, too. Georgia lost to a third-string quarterback at home, and it didn't matter.
Welcome back. We're on with Danny Sheridan for a few more minutes. Danny, obviously we're 2.5 weeks away from the college football playoff rankings and pairings to be revealed. But right now, who is the favorite to win it all? Who do you expect to get in as well?
Well, let me quickly add, when I said Alabama's one of the best 4 or 5 teams in the country, that's this week. Obviously, if they lose to Auburn, they wouldn't have that ranking. But Clemson would clearly be the favorite. Not a huge favorite, but, you can talk about Clemson's schedule. Same thing I heard last year. They looked pretty good in the championship game. Clemson would probably be about I think didn't they beat Ohio State a couple of years ago, like 31-0?
Yeah.
Something like that. Clemson would be it's a different team, obviously, a different Ohio State team, but Clemson would still be a slight favorite, maybe 2.5 against Ohio State. They'd be a 4-point favorite against LSU. Against Alabama, 6.5 or 7-point favorite, and maybe 8 against Georgia. Against Oregon, Utah, and Oklahoma, Clemson would be at least 14. So not a big disparity, again, among the first 4 or 5 teams, but there's a huge drop-off. Nothing against Oregon or Utah or Oklahoma.
So is Ohio State the school you would have closest to them right now?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's point spread-wise, very, very close. And it'd be interesting to see how Ohio State plays at Michigan this week, but they played consistently well all year, and Clemson has done the same with the exception of the North Carolina game. I can't say that about. Well, LSU's been pretty solid most of the year also.
Yeah, so you make a great point. I mean, right now, time is frozen as we talk about these things, and with each week, clearly it's going to change or could change.
correct. No, it definitely will change. If Clemson were to play a real bad game again, a very close game against South Carolina, I still think they'd be favored. If Ohio State obviously were to lose, they'd be out of it. But yeah, it will change, and I don't see LSU. I'm wondering when they're going to have a letdown, and you could say they had one against Mississippi. I don't know. I guess they had a little letdown, but I don't see them losing to A&M.
Talking to Danny Sheridan, Danny, I want you to explain a little bit about the line, because I mean, I've asked you to do this a million times, but I always get people to call in and they get upset when their team's not the favorite.
The betting line is real simple. It's the betting public's perception of how two teams match up. Alabama's playing Vanderbilt. You're not going to make it even. And the betting line this is the most important to me, it has absolutely nothing to do with predicting the outcome of the game. It's just designed to hopefully get equal betting on both teams. And that's all the line is. If Clemson were to, even when they beat Ohio State 31-0, I think that year they might have been a 1-point favorite or 1-point underdog. It didn't matter as long as it attracted equal betting on both sides. Why equal betting on both sides? You have billions, with a B, billions of dollars bet on college and professional football every weekend in this country, probably about $8 billion. So you try to pick a number, not the bookmakers or odds makers, try to pick a number that will attract that equal betting on both sides. To come to that number, you have to take in what is the betting public's perception of those two teams. Sorry for that garrulous answer, but that's pretty much it.
Oh, I want to, before you go, I don't know if you heard, we played a clip of Brando, your good friend Tim Brando, a minute ago. And
No, I didn't.
And Tim has been very critical of the college football playoff committee. In fact, I asked Bill Hancock, the executive director, about Tim last night, and he was none too pleased that Tim had really. I mean, he didn't. He just basically said it's a sham that Tim knows before the year, back in July, who's going to be in the playoffs. It's pretty much, in his words, the Sun Belt Invitational, meaning that it's the privilege and the blue bloods who always move to the front of the line. I realize, in addition to being an odds maker, you're also a renowned football analyst. What do you think about the current system we have?
Well, I don't like it, and I tend to agree, not 100%, but a lot of what Tim says is true. You don't want to put, if you have a choice of putting an Ohio State, huge brand name, against a very good Minnesota name, you're going to go with Ohio State. It's a subjective process. I don't like that. I like an objective process where you deal with the facts. And I can't think, Paul, and I could be wrong, the only year that I think the committee has gotten it right was 2 years ago when they picked, again, their duty should be to pick, I hear so many things, conference championship, losses, schedule, all that stuff. The bottom line is their job, to me, and I think they've said it, is to pick the best 4 teams in college football.
But they don't do that.
Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah,
I know
but
they don't do that.
I mean, you and I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen this year.
Right.
If Alabama wins, they're going to pick Oregon, and of course the chairman of the committee happens to be the athletic director at Oregon.
Well, I don't know what they're going to do, but I know it's subjective, and I don't like that. I think you need to include more teams, but the most important thing that you should say, and it would be hard to defend, the present system, they can defend whatever they do. They can say, hey, they lost in 1911. That's kind of silly, but they can make up a reason to fit their final choice, and that I don't like. But if you come out with, you got to pick the best 4 teams, it makes it a little tough to be transparent and to state why you're going to stay. I don't think it's a conspiracy figure, but Tim makes a good point. The blue bloods in college football, same with the AP poll.
But one of those blue bloods just happens to be Alabama, and some will react to you saying what you did a minute ago to be part of that. And there are a lot of people, and you know my schedule. When I'm in the East Coast, they don't want to hear me say Alabama is one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the country. And the same thing you just got through saying. They almost just put up their hands and we'll say, well, they need to win their division. They don't even win their division. They lost LSU at home.
Well, they got it right, like I said, 2 years ago. But, Paul, the committee, when you say raise your hand, who's been in the college football playoffs every year and who's deserved to be in there? Alabama. I've not heard anyone say, well, they shouldn't have
but
put
Danny,
them in.
why? But I guess to be a contrarian, even though I agree with you, I'll just why would that matter if they've been in or not?
It just shows to me that they have been one of the best teams, and then when you judge them just on this year alone, they're pretty darn good. I mean, I can't think of any coach at, well, maybe Clemson and maybe Ohio State that wouldn't want to switch teams with Alabama, but when you only lose like one game in the SEC, that's assuming they only lose one game, you're one of the best teams in the country, period. Same with Georgia, same with LSU. It's Alabama fatigue. That's the only thing I can tell you.
I think you're right. And that's where this debate goes on. Well, anyway, Danny Sheridan, certainly always great to have you on. I hope you'll come back.
I appreciate that, Paul. Take care.
Thank you. Danny Sheridan joining us. We'll get your reaction to what he had to say at 855-242-7285. We are coming right back. So these are the matchups this week, guys. See anything you like?
Nice. One thing does not look like the rest.
Clemson being off?
No, I mean, people have bye. I mean, a bye this late in the year is a little tough. More looking at number 5, and I think that's why everybody's hung up on Alabama. Because you're right, based on what, and Danny's right, based on what they have done in the college football playoff era, you know, that alone normally would warrant a
Well, I will tell you this,
inclusion.
they will not get as much criticism this year as they've had in the years past because there's still a little bit of a pall around Alabama. But this is usually the week.
Yeah.
When everybody loads up.
This is when the haters come out.
Alabama this year has only beaten 2 teams with a winning record. This is just so different from every other team that they, every other Alabama team.
My contention is there's really only one game that they control, and that's their big Power 5 game, and that was Duke.
Right.
Yes.
The conference games they have no control over, and
Nope.
Alabama's usually going to play 3, one big game and 3 cream puffs. That's just the way they do it.
Yeah.
Right, but it just happens to be the rest of the SEC West, like Arkansas, Mississippi
listen,
State,
you can't
and Ole
help
Miss.
it that the league is from the middle down is really inferior.
Right, so they had the one
Right.
big opponent in LSU at home, and everybody's like, look, if they win that, but just on
By
top
the
of
way,
all that,
I mean, if they win next week, you'll have to add one more to that list.
yes, the 8-4 Auburn will be their best win.
Yeah,
but
well,
the
say you sound like all these. I mean,
No,
yeah, I mean, Mark, don't give me this 8-4 Auburn BS, okay?
what? It's true.
You're-
What's their best win then?
Wow.
7-3
8-4
A&M.
Auburn.
8-4.
Auburn will have losses to the number 1, 4, and 5
All
and
division-
9 schools
all
in the
division
country.
teams.
So that is a specious argument.
But it's
Right.
true. I mean, it's just
It's
a
total
fact.
BS.
How is it
If
BS?
you're-
It's
if
a
you know
fact. They're
anything about
playing
college
Auburn,
football,
who's 8-4.
and you don't just play
They're in the same
statistics
division.
game, you're full of crap if
The
you want to make that
problem
argument.
is they're playing Duke and they're playing Western Carolina a week when everybody else is trying to build their resumes, and they're doing it without a starting quarterback and with all these linebackers injured. So people want to see how good Alabama is, and they're not going to get a chance
Well,
until they play Auburn.
Mark, slow down, okay?
Slow your roll.
They're going to find out next week.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, the radio audience is back. I am just not going to tolerate somebody saying, well, Alabama isn't any good because it beat an 8-4 Auburn team when the 4 losses from Auburn are going to be teams all in the top 10. I mean, that is just patently ridiculous. Auburn would be undefeated with Clemson's schedule. So let's just stop this lazy, intellectually dishonest argument, okay? Greg is up next. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call. We will try to stamp out intellectual dishonesty at every turn, my friend.
Well, good. We need to.
It's easier said than done. But he is right. You know, I've said before that the committee has objective criteria that they use subjectively. And they have said repeatedly over the years that they want the 4 best teams in there. And I believe it's in their charter or whatever it is they're supposed to do. But they don't open up in a transparent way how they go about doing it. And whenever you try to get a rational, sane answer out of them, you always get the doublespeak that drives you and everybody else crazy.
Well, because they open the door for people like Tim to make the arguments that they do.
Yeah, so it doesn't make anybody happy. I mean, even those of us who are fans of a 4-team playoff are not happy with the way that this is laid out every week, year after year. And so if Alabama wins against Auburn, they're one of the 4 best teams.
No. All you're going to hear is they beat an 8-4 team.
Yeah. So
the Kubiak Chronicles.
Yeah, it's you won't hear it about any other team though. It's just because everybody's tired of Alabama being in the playoffs, and I get it. But if Alabama loses 2 games, then they're not one of the 4 best teams.
No.
But if they don't lose, they are. It's an either-or proposition.
You are correct.
But what do I know? I'm just a fan. So.
Well, you're a smart fan. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Cat Daddy with the report from Columbia.
Mr. Finebaum, you is the man, the best sports commentator in the land. You know how to roll that barrel. We're so glad you got rid of Darryl, Mr. Finebaum. You is the man. And yes, from Columbia,
Bad man too.
It's gotten worse, Mr. Finebaum.
So what's the latest? Has the president changed his statement since 5 o'clock?
No, sir, but I hope the president and Ray Tanner saw the Democratic debate last night, because one of the candidates.
By the way, I have to admit, I'm sorry, I stayed up to watch it, and I am the worst for the wear.
Well, Bernie Sanders said the world ain't got but 8 to 9 years.
If Bernie Sanders would quit pointing at me through that TV, I want to change this world today. What's he doing with his fingers?
I want to change Gamecock football today. I want to beat Clemson before those 8 years come up.
I mean, I kid you not. I'm in a
a
hotel room in New York, and I threw a bottle of water at the TV when he started doing all that stuff.
Well, he's crazy, Bernie. He ain't going nowhere, but, I mean, I hope he's
I think
wrong.
Bernie Sanders ought to be in charge of the College Football Playoff Committee. Can you imagine him every Tuesday? I know I'm getting into politics. I'm just trying to be funny. Can you imagine him out there every Tuesday night talking to Reese Davis? Now, Reese, I want to say that Auburn, he's like the conductor of the Vienna Symphony.
He'd want Ukraine and Cuba to be in the national playoff.
Well, you're right. He would be in favor of that. But anyway,
Well,
I cannot. By the way, I cannot talk politics. It's against company policy.
Well, that's a good idea. I just brought that up because I thought
He just irritates me with all that hand movement.
Yeah, look, I think he's part Italian.
Bernie?
Where he moves his hands around like that.
Bernie sounds Jewish, doesn't it?
You ever been to Italy?
Have I ever been to Italy?
Yeah.
No, I've never been out of the country. I've never been out of Alabama.
I've been over there for 2 years, and when they cuss you out not only with their mouth, but with their hands.
Okay.
But I guess that's just
Well,
the way
they're not the only ones that use their hands.
Yeah, a lot of Carolina fans, we do that to Clemson fans, and they do it back to us. But I always say they saying we number one.
Hey, good to hear from you. Shaw is up next. Am I going to have to give
Hello.
Bernie equal time now? Yes. Okay, Bernie, you're welcome on the show anytime. How are you?
Hello, Paul. I love Cat Daddy. He's become my favorite caller, I believe. I want some of that palmetto moonshine.
Yeah, no. I if I had started taking that a week ago, I would have felt great.
Anyway, Danny Brands answered the phone when I called, and I said, "Man, you guys are the greatest. I love to hear Danny and Mark too." But anyway,
yeah. Well, I like Danny. Mark is a little bit unnerving.
That's true. We're Notre Dame's fan. You know, we got to give him a break. Anyway,
he's still trying to get Notre Dame in the playoff with 2 losses.
Well, so when you talk to the head of the CFP or whatever,
Bill Hancock.
Okay, he gave us. He said, you said, how important are those championships? Well, he said very important. He said the 4 things were, head-to-head, strength of schedule, common opponents, and conference championships. Well, I mean, Alabama's got 2 out of 3 against 2 out of 4 against those, and head-to-head's kind of moot. So so we win. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, but Alabama alumnus, I'm not sure I want to even want to go in there and play Ohio State or Clemson this year without Tua. So I don't know what to say. But when Bill Hancock gave that statement, I'm going, well, do the math. I mean, if all those others are.
Have you ever noticed when Bill Hancock's on the show, he has this, like he just discovered that that airplanes fly type of sound.
Yeah.
Paul, it's just unbelievable.
He's a piece of work.
Wow.
He really is.
We had
like
such
said,
a good meeting yesterday. So many thoughtful ideas were expressed by all the honorable men in the room.
But he doesn't want to tell you those ideas.
No, he doesn't want to tell us one thing that's said in there other than this piling a bunch of horse manure on our head.
I wanted to ask Danny, Sheridan so much. I wish we had gotten on callers, but I wanted to ask.
We didn't have
him
enough
about
security in the building for Danny to take calls.
But these guys, these bookies on the radio that call in and give you the lock of the year. The lock of the year, you can bet all your bets this week. Bet the house on this one.
Hey,
you know what they do?
Oh, I know what they do.
They tell half the people one team and half the people
Shaw,
the other team.
You're in Birmingham, right?
Right.
I don't remember this guy's name, but when I was at WJOX, we had some tout from Miami that called in the morning show, and then he called in the afternoon show. And I swear on the morning, I'm just going to, for example, like say Notre Dame was playing Southern Cal. Notre Dame was a 2-point favorite. And the morning show, he picked Southern Cal. And on our show, he picked Notre Dame.
Right.
And I said, hold on a second. I heard you this morning. And he said, hey, I'm paying for this time. I said, I don't care if you're paying for it or not. You just told the same radio station one thing in the morning and another thing in the afternoon. Well, I got in trouble for blowing the account, but I felt like I owed it to the fans to tell them that they were getting conned by this guy. I think he went to jail, by the way.
People just need to know that. Last week he picked the Auburn-Georgia game as the block of the week. Well, that game, the line was like 6 or 7, and what did it end up? 7.
Yeah.
He can't. So he kidding. That ain't the lock of the year. Anyway.
No, listen. I don't want to get off on these guys. Sheridan doesn't do that. If you want his picks, you have to subscribe to his service. He's not going on the radio giving them away.
And he don't guarantee anything.
Well, no, guaranteed Bluebell special lock of the year.
Exactly.
I've never met anybody that can really. Have you ever tried to pick football games against the spread?
Oh, I can't do it.
It is impossible.
That's why I don't bet. It is.
I always get nervous. I'll run into somebody at the airport and they go, "Who you like?" I'm like, "I'm not telling you," and they think I'm being rude, and it's not. I'm not being rude. First of all, I don't know, and number two, they think I do know.
Well, you're so smart. You don't even pick your teams until the day of the game.
Yeah, because I don't want somebody.
You got to get a feel.
Yeah, well, I do like to do that, but I don't want somebody betting money based on something I say.
Exactly.
Because I really don't know. I could not. Paul. If you gave me 5 games a week, I couldn't break 500 with a gun at my head.
No, nobody can.
No.
You're just lucky that week. Just wait till next week.
Oh yeah, I might get 5-0, and next week I'm 0-5, and
that's right.
The guy doubled his money and lost his house.
Yeah, go to Vegas and have fun at the tables. Don't do that betting. Anyway,
Anyway,
love the show, Paul. Try to call back some more.
Thank you. I'm glad I just got through telling the audience I don't know anything about football. Listen, I have, I've got a good feel sometimes, but that's based on what you think you know. But it's a hard thing to do. Let's continue. Dan, who does know football from Louisiana. Hello, Dan.
Hey, Paul. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, buddy.
Paul, what are the odds that Coach Saban will win another national championship?
Wow, that's a good question. I should have asked Sheridan that question. I think they have gone down. Don't you agree?
Yes. I'm just looking at it. I'm not trying to, kick Alabama when they're down, but
I had that question asked to me yesterday by Stephen A. Smith. He said, "Do you think the window has closed?" on Nick Saban, or maybe it was Max Kellerman. I can't remember. And I was reluctant to answer that question because I really would like to see how this season ends and just what happens next with the quarterback situation at Alabama.
Right. Well,
But I do feel that for about 10 years, it was almost guaranteed that he was going to win one every other year. I don't think there's a guarantee anymore.
Right. I hope Coach Saban, coaches for a long time, and but I'm just looking at things the way they've happened, and I don't know. The last 4 years, he's won one championship. The last 4.
Yeah, I mean, starting in he's won 2. He won in 15 and 17.
Okay. All right. I was thinking.
Yeah, his last, the national championship Coach Saban has won at Alabama are 2009, 11, 12, 15, and 17.
Okay, so 18, 19. He's missed out on 2 years.
Well, he hasn't missed this year yet, but he's pretty close to it.
Right. Okay. I was thinking Tua was a generational quarterback, in my opinion, and I know Coach Saban has had a lot of 4- and 5-star recruits, and I just a lot of thoughts go on.
No, listen, I fully understand what you're saying, Dan. And if this year ends with Alabama without Alabama being in the playoffs, there will be more of those conversations. Hey, thanks for the call. We're up against a break. We've got an hour and 15 minutes remaining. Tomorrow, live in Athens, where among our guests will be Kirby Smart.